Boom, 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 boom. A side, B side. What side are you on?
Well, what's going on, Adam?
Should I just give you the hiccups?
No, I was
Because it sounded like
laughing
you
at
had the
you.
hiccups. Oh, well, that's fair. Uh, I had the hiccups a second ago that I heard a hiccup sound, and so I assumed that they were catching in some way, which would be really impressive.
It's
Like,
not yawns. It's not
yeah,
catching.
but yawns over Zoom are catching.
Oh, yeah, when
Like
you're
if
on
you see
video.
somebody on, yeah, yeah, which we don't do because no one's paid enough for us to do it. If someone
No,
wants to donate to watch
that
us
has
on the
absolutely nothing to do with it, and you know that.
That's true. That's true. It's just because I'm always in my pajamas.
Oh, I started watching on Apple TV Plus, Apple Plus
Mhm.
TV, Apple TV Plus, whatever. Platonic with Seth Rogen and Rose Byrne,
Oh,
and it's actually
oh
pretty
yeah, yeah,
funny.
yeah. This is the one where like the best friend is just like the husband doesn't really trust him because they're just like chaos for each other, but like nothing ever happens.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yes, and but it's really funny because well it's Seth Rogen who's an absolute moron but like in the best way possible.
Yeah, and like kind of plays to that type. Like he knows, that's what everyone expects of him at this point.
Hmm. Hmm.
So he just kind of like he doesn't pretend that he's something he's not. Like he does this when people. I'm gonna be the funny dorky guy who's kind
Right,
of an idiot.
so he plays
I'm
that
gonna
very
make lots
well.
of money. Yeah, make lots of money doing it.
Yes, he plays that very well. So that's like the latest thing I've been watching. um I don't, what else have I watched this week? I can't even think of anything.
I mean, I have not watched a lot either. It's summer, so it's like you got to get outside.
Yeah.
Like last night, I went to a baseball game, and we had the oldest like open house for graduation on Saturday, and I've been trying to walk a lot. All of that was working really well until today, and I don't know if it's hitting Nebraska or if it ever will, just because I don't understand prevailing winds and like how weather patterns are established, but it is super like smoggy, foggy, smoky today.
I think they are expecting it to hit. I know it hit here previously. I think they are expecting it hit here again.
And this is like the first day that I've noticed it, but it is like substantial to the point where like I walked outside and I turned and I was like, okay, something is on fire
Hmm.
right near close, but it's not close at all because evidently it's Canada.
Yeah.
But like you could feel it in the air, and like we had a air quality advisory, and people are like, "Don't go outside," and I was like, "Well, I'm dumb. I did it anyway." But there's no joke. Like, yeah, I thought when I walked outside, somebody down the street was having a big bonfire, and I was like, "Guys, probably should have got a permit for that."
Yeah, I woke up this morning and my sinuses were awful, which, they, and then the last time the winds were bringing it through here, like people were having like sore throats and stuff. I was like, why is my
Mm-hmm.
throat so sore? And it's like, oh, right, it's the winds bringing in the smoke.
Well, I mean, every time you inhale, it's like secondhand smoke, but not nicotine. It's oak.
Yeah, yeah. But it has been beautiful. I've been using the time to like sit out on my patio and read and just like listen to the birds when I'm not getting pooped on. Did I tell you that? I
You
told you that,
did.
right? Yeah.
You did.
Uh-huh. So there's that, but it's just been
I mean,
so nice.
in the bird's excuse, you're in Nebraska. There's not really anything else to poop. It's like you were corn. So
Yeah. I read this article that said if there was an alien invasion, like the best states to be in were like Virginia, New York, places like that. The worst, it was like Nevada and like Idaho, Wyoming, and Nebraska.
I got to tell you though, I saw that same study. It was done by NewJerseyCasino.com, and it was clearly biased to the East Coast. Because
Well,
I don't know, like,
no, mine wasn't. This was a different one. This was
was
not
it a
done by.
different one?
Yeah, it was a different one because they were looking at things like landscape and like science and trees and
So
shelter.
the one that I saw from that was from NJCasino.com was like the states that have had the most UFO sightings, and they like weighted it really badly towards like, well, if you've already seen UFOs, that's probably where they're going. I was like, guys, did you not see Independence Day? The first place they are going is major metropolitan areas to blow up their cities.
Well, I mean, there was the big sighting in Las Vegas last weekend.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, I think the only reason that we have not been visited by aliens, aliens have not done like the whole like official thing, is word has gotten back to them. And it's like that friend who drives through a sketchy area of town and tells everybody else not to go there.
And they're like, yeah, we're good.
Like we're the planet that the aliens like lock the doors when they drive by.
Right, right. They're like, yeah, this is a
It's
little
like
sketch.
let's not stop there. Let's just skip on to like Mars or something. There's a
Earth's a
rest
little
stop there.
ghetto. Let's just keep going.
Like they don't even like each other. They're super mean and they're destroying their planet for fun. So let's not go to Earth. It's a
Yeah,
silly
let's
place.
let's say we lost the keys and just keep.
Yeah, just keep going.
I
I,
love how we're talking for the aliens, even though that's exactly what they are saying.
I feel like that's the only logical reason. Like if there is intelligent life, they were like, guys, we checked. There's no intelligent life on Earth. Let's just skip it.
It's a barren planet. Let's go.
Let's give them another couple hundred years to figure things out or murder each other. And either way,
Either
we'll
way.
stop back again. Yeah. It'll be better than right now. It's either going to be empty and perfect for us to vacation on, or they'll have evolved.
Hey, I can't remember. Were you a Black Mirror watcher?
I have seen several episodes. I have not. I was not like a every week person, just
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the stuff gets really dark,
Yeah, it does.
and I've already got enough like negative imagery in my brain that pops up in the night terrors, so I try not to add to it. But I am kind of I'm cautiously interested
Mm-hmm.
that they're coming back.
I am very interested that they're coming back. It's so funny though, because I feel like we are living in Black Mirror with certain things because like the whole AI and now
Mm-hmm.
you can use AI. There's a new program where you can use AI to um talk to your deceased loved ones. And it's like that is a Black Mirror episode.
Oh, really? Geez, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, it was all about like
Every day is something new with the AI.
oh man, so there's a radio station in Portland, Oregon, who now has the official and it's just been like everywhere. It's the first AI personality, AI Ashley, and you know, so they've actually cloned a personality's voice, and now they're using it as AI Ashley, and it sounds exactly as you would expect. Like, hey, this is AI Ashley. I'm calling
Yeah,
because you want, it's like very dry, very
I mean, also the least unsurprising thing is radio trying not to pay.
well, and this is a cluster that's not actually doing well. So of course they're getting roasted on the
Yeah.
socials. Like people are, and their moniker is live, and it's like, you
Oh,
might want to rethink that.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a Ted Lasso thing where they're like, it's live.
But yeah, they're just getting roasted left and right, and it's not just like radio people, it's listeners, and that's
Well, and like I
the
think
joy of
one
radio
one of
though.
the silly things about that is how much of radio has been automated for like the last 20 years. Like my first job in radio was being a board op where I took voice tracks that were recorded in Salt Lake and then listened to them and just hit play when it was time,
You're giving away all the secrets, Adam.
right. But I feel like after 20 years, people need to hear secrets because people think that like it's still live and stuff.
And
In a
that's the
lot of
whole
places it's
point.
not. But the fact that they're telling people that it's AI, that feels extra weird.
Yes, it does. It does feel very, very weird. And apparently, like, I think I don't know if this is everybody or it kind of like the nationwide contesting. You have to tell people it's a nationwide contest. I think you have to tell people it's AI. That's why it's like AI Ashley.
But you wonder if it's like they're like, oh, well, this will get us more attention
I don't
because
know.
we're like the first radio station to do it, admit that we're doing it. But I mean, I guess in a way, like we've had AI involved in a lot of things. Like if you think about it, AI is pretty much the one who creates your playlist for Spotify. It's an algorithm.
It's true.
It just doesn't have a personality or pretend to have a personality. But then
Yeah.
again, a lot of people don't pretend to have a personality.
Throwing some shade.
I just being grumpy. I was walking
Ooh.
outside and breathing in smoke like there was like Smog the
Don't
dragon
blame it
was
on the
down the
smog.
street.
You're just a grumpy old white dude. Let's just be real.
I am. Well, that's true. But today I get to be like, now I get to be like, it was the nature.
I shouldn't say you're old. You're not old. You're just a grumpy white dude.
I'm pretty old. I mean, I got a like full on adult who just graduated high school,
Okay, if you're old,
and
then I'm ancient because I'm older than you, so shut your face.
I went to a Twins game last night, and at one point there was a guy batting, and it was like this guy was born on da 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 da. It was the day I graduated high school, and that's when I looked at my phone. And I was like, well, probably time for bedtime for Gramps here.
You know what? I'm gonna make you feel even worse. Today, I was hanging out with my daughter at her job, and she was like
Mm-hmm.
introducing me to like the two people that I've never met because she introduces me every time I go in there. And
Well,
she goes,
yeah,
"Yeah."
it's fun
She
to brag
goes,
about your mom being on the radio.
she goes, "Yeah, this is my mom." And the guy goes, "Whoa!" I go, "Wait, is that a good whoa or a bad whoa?" He goes, "Yeah, you guys don't look like mother and daughter at all. We're like sisters." I
I,
was like, "Thank you
yeah,
very much."
you, y'all never have. Like the three of you look like sisters. Always have.
Which I will never tire of because as I age, it feels really good. So
Yeah, no, you should feel good. That's awesome. At no point is anyone being like, Adam, are those your kids? Or are you, well, sometimes they're like, are those your kids or are you like somebody's uncle? But we didn't think anyone would trust you with children. But
oh
yeah,
my
no one's
gosh.
confusing me for a, sibling. I think I told this story last summer. We were out at the lake. It was my father and I and my cousin, he's like 23. But the three of us are standing at the counter. And the guy behind the counter was like, "Is this like a family reunion, like father, son, grandfather?" And I was like,
Oh.
"Dude." But then I thought about it, and I was like, "I guess it's not really that far off. Like, I got an 18-year-old.
Well, that's true.
23 really isn't that different.
I mean, it is
I
a
mean,
few years.
yeah, it probably just means that I should have moisturized more when I was younger, or ever.
I mean, it's not too late to start with a good face
I think
routine.
I think it's too late. I think I'm just ready to embrace the old,
Okay. All right.
and
All right.
also like I gotta have to buy like moisturizer and stuff. That just sounds exhausting.
Are you
Remember, grumpy old dude.
all right. All right, this week, Adam, we're gonna have some resolution because I know you're a big fan of that.
I do love resolution,
I
not in my
know,
personal life, but
but at least in the
in
podcast.
stories. Yeah,
Yes.
in the podcast I need it.
So this week we are going to talk about a crime that a cold case that was solved almost 40 years to the day that it happened.
Goodness.
So today we'll be talking about Cynthia Ruth Wood, who went missing and then was found in 1984. Cynthia's murderer, we'll get to the story, has, like I said, has been on the run since 1984. She was born February 13th of 1951. She was married with 3 children, and she was going through a really contentious divorce. Donald Michael Santini had told Cynthia, "Hey, I've got some information for you that I really think could help you in your custody battle." And
Hmm.
so they agreed to meet on June 6th of 1984. That was the last time anybody saw Cynthia Wood. It wasn't until a few days later, on June 9th of 1984, her body was unfortunately found in a ditch. When the medical examiner did the autopsy, it was found that she had been strangled to death. So
So
police,
so it feels like this shouldn't have taken 40 years if like she was gonna go meet this guy and then she doesn't, then she's gone, you know?
well, right. So police collect fingerprints from Cynthia's body, and they are a match to Donald Santini, which you're thinking, okay, like you said, all right, they did this immediately. So why did it take so many years?
Yeah.
They issue an arrest warrant immediately, but he was gone. He fled
Oh,
the area.
he's on the run.
He's on the run, and he was on the run for a long time. It
So it really
wasn't
wasn't a who done it. It was a where is he?
It's a where is he? So it wasn't until very recently, like I said, almost 40 years later, Donald Santini has been found. Now, this case started in Florida. I should have said that, sorry. in
I mean,
Hillsborough County.
I feel like anyone could just assume
It
it might
always
be
starts in
Florida.
Florida. It
It might,
always starts in
I
Florida.
mean, it might be Florida. Just putting it out there.
But Donald Santini was found on the other side of the country in Campo, California. He'd been living in the small community of Campo that has less than 3,000 people for years. Campo is about an hour outside of San Diego.
Okay. So beautiful country, probably, or it's a desert. Either way.
Either way, either way.
Yeah.
So he's been on the run and he had been living in this community and he's like a pillar of the community. People say that he was always friendly. And one of the neighbors said, just last week we had a chat about like some issues with his fence on the property that the neighbor had. And he was known by the nickname Wells. And so someone was recently interviewed and they said, well, Wells was always a friendly guy. And just last week we had an issue about, a fence being on his property. And he's like, hey, you want to come over and visit? What are you doing? No, I don't.
Creepy dude.
Another member of the community said we're all flabbergasted. He was a pillar of the community. He seemed upstanding. He was an advocate, non-confrontational, and it seemed like he was hardly hiding anything.
I mean, if you got a bad police record, you probably don't want to get in any confrontations.
Exactly. Over the years, Donald Santini went by many different aliases, including Charles Michael Stevens, Donald Chapman, and John Trumbullin. Police say that when he first fled from Florida, he went to Texas and he was using one of those aliases until he finally ended up in California, where he settled in Campo. Unfortunately, we don't actually know 100% how police were able to identify him because it still has to go to trial. Because remember,
Okay.
he was on the run. They had issued the arrest warrant, but he had never gone to court. So they still have to keep some things private. But they say that they had a tip to the Florida Caribbean Regional Fugitive Task Force that led them to Donald's whereabouts. For right now, they have the fingerprints and, of course, the fact that he ran.
Which is never a good sign.
Never a good sign.
Yeah.
A guy named David Thomas, he's with the Florida Gulf Coast University. He's a forensics professor. He said that it is likely that Donald Santini left a bunch of forensic evidence at the scene. He said there's a thing called the low card exchange that means what's usually, he said, meaning that what is on me usually is left at the crime scene. So it could be in her clothes, it could be some part of her body, but he said there is something that he left at the scene and police were able to collect it. So kudos to them.
Mm-hmm.
Following Donald Santini's arrest, the Hillsborough Sheriff's Office released a statement that says, we are aware of this arrest and have sent detectives to interview Donald Santini while we await extradition. This arrest will allow us to re-examine evidence that was collected in 1984 using the technology of today, as the case is now considered open once again. While that process is underway, we want to protect the integrity of the investigation and cannot release any further details. An extradition arraignment for Donald Santini was actually set up this past Friday, and a judge ruled that he is, in fact, at the age of 65, fit for extradition, and he was taken into custody where he's being held without bond. So now the state of Florida has 30 days to get him back into Florida. If officials can't meet that deadline, he's due to have another court hearing on July 10th. There you go. It's a 39-year-old, almost 40-year-old case. But
we don't know how he got caught. But I would bet money, and this is just a complete assumption, that it had to do with one of those DNA databases.
Oh, I bet you some 23andMe, somebody did something and it popped up and it hit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you're right. I would bet money on it. But this will be one that we'll have to follow. I don't think he's going to get off because he obviously fled for a reason. It wasn't like he was like, oh no, I tried to help her in her divorce and I don't know what happened. The man fled and was on the run for 40 years.
Yeah. I mean, it sure seems guilty. It's not a great look.
especially having his fingerprints on the body, and we don't know what else. We don't know because they were able to use the fingerprints to get a warrant for his arrest, but using 2023 technology based on what they were able to collect at the scene, I'm sure they're, like that forensic professor said, there is a plethora of evidence. I'm sure that they have.
Yeah, stuff that went into storage and is now able to use modern technology to get a little bit more detail from.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're leaving fingerprints, you're probably leaving hair, skin flakes, or dandruff or something.
Right. And that's what that professor was saying. Like, he left something, whether it was on her body, whether it was in her clothes, like you said, in her hair, it's somewhere. And the fact that during his extradition trial, the judge asked him, he said, "My understanding is you are admitting that you're Donald Santini." And he said, "I am." And then he said, "You're willing to waive your right to contest the extradition?" To which Donald Santini replied, "I do. I just don't feel safe because of families." So, to me, and this is my speculation, I'm not a judge, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a forensic professor, I'm just little old me. But if he's fearing families, he's not contesting extradition, he knew he ran. This man is probably, like, I've heard other people who've been on the run for years, and they finally get to a point where they're like, "I'm just finally glad I got caught."
Yeah, you wonder if this went after 40 years of living a lie, and every time the door opens, every time there's a knock on the door, every time you hear a sound, is like today the day they found me.
Right.
In a weird way, maybe that was not a good form of torture, because like we don't want to torture people, but I hope he had some bad days.
Yeah. He is currently in San Diego. He is waiting to be extradited to Florida. Again, they have 30 days. So July 10th, if they have not extradited him, there will be another trial. And we will see what happens then.
Well, I look forward to the update because we'll probably be doing the podcast.
I would hope so. But there you go. That is a brief, like I said, what did I say at the top of it? What did I say for you? Closure. Closure? No, that's not what the word. That wasn't the word I used. What word did I use for you, Adam? I said you have resolution.
Resolution. I know closure was mentioned. Resolution. I mean, they all mean sort of the same thing.
There you go. So we have some resolution. We have a suspect in custody, and hopefully a trial will begin very soon. And that is the B side.
So on the A side today, because we are the king and queen of segues, I'm actually going to start with an update to a previous A side.
Oh, okay.
Because just earlier today, some new information has come out, and I'm trying to remember when it was, and I should have looked this up. But when we did a few years ago, a few months ago, we swapped the A side B side. I talked about the movie Rust and the shooting involved on the sets. Alec Baldwin was involved. Just today, I saw another updated news story, and I think since we've done the A side on that, all the charges against Alec Baldwin have been dismissed. I know that was kind of in the process when we were doing it. I think probably February is when we were doing that. But they're now talking about really the main focus of the trial is going to be focused on the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, and her state of mind, and also like whether or not she was drunk or hungover the day of the shooting.
I didn't know that was a possibility.
Yeah, so that it did have been mentioned. Like we talked about, like there were a bunch of people that went out the night before. There were crew members that took guns off of the set and fired them with live bullets that day, as sort of like blowing off steam sort of thing. But the most recent information, and there's news stories on CNN, NBC News, it all came out earlier this morning. The prosecutors have brought to light. They've mentioned this in filings, and I think her defense lawyers are brought it to the news to try to get ahead of the story, or to try to stop any potential further biasing of potential jury members. But it seems like there is evidence that has been hinted at by both the prosecution and Alec Baldwin's lawyers that there was some sort of malfunction with the gun. And so the reason that charges against him were dropped is he said he never put his finger on the trigger, but the gun still went off because
Right.
he was practicing quick draws, and something in the motion must have caused the gun to go off, and that would have been a flaw in either the gun itself or manufacturer flaw or something. But the fact that there was a live bullet in it goes back to the armor who loaded it. That's Hannah Gutierrez Reed,
Right.
who, according to witnesses, that told investigators that the day of the during the evenings of the entire shooting, Reed was drinking heavily and smoking marijuana in the evenings during the shooting of the film. And this is another one we talked about. The word shooting is very confusing in this case. The filming of the movie
Okay.
before the shooting that
Before the
occurred.
shooting. Okay.
But pretty much every night, according to witnesses, there was a chance that she was imbibing, which is not illegal. You can do that in your off time. But when an accident like this happens, there are going to be questions. And so
Hmm.
that's the current update of the case is that the prosecutors are really honing in on her and whether or not she was acting safely in her duty as the gunsmith, the armorer on set, who should be the for one who makes sure that everything is safe, and whether or not that would lead to the tragic death of Helena Hutchins and the director who got injured as well, whose name I am forgetting right now, was Joe something,
Joel
but
is
Helena,
Joel something?
like
Joel.
Joel something Souza maybe, but the bigger
Mm,
Joel Souza was the director, who was also injured. But the bigger issue being the unfortunate death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins. So that is the newest update on the case. It seems like they have focused in on chance someone that are going to focus the case on. But as we mentioned before, there were so many things that would happen on this set. And if you want more details, go back and find the Rust shooting episode back in February, because there are so many chances for this to have gone wrong. It's going to be really hard for us to ever know who the truly guilty party is. But it seems
yeah.
like they've at least found a direction to take the case this time. That was a new update just today.
Wow.
So moving on the A side and a more enjoyable part of the A side, we are doing this week another That Guy from That Show. And I have been literally holding this one for like 3 years.
What?
I have been wanting to do this guy, to talk about this guy, but I have been waiting and waiting because over the last 3 years, he's become more and more known within the American, entertainment landscape because of the show that he has been on, which just ended. I think it was like 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago. He was on Succession, and he was an unknown to American audiences. Well, a lot of American audiences, and even when the series started out, it didn't seem like his character was going to be that big. But he was so good. It seems like the writers were like, we got to keep giving him stuff to do. Somehow, in the show of entirely unlikable people doing unlikable things, Matthew Macfadden's character, uh, who was the husband of the daughter, who ended up, his story had a very interesting arc at the end. No spoilers because it's a very recent show, and I don't want to spoil anything. But became somehow the show full of unlikable people doing unlikable things. He was one of the only likable characters, even though he was doing unlikable things. And it was interesting that somehow he became a likable character, even though there was really no reason to like him. It's a
Hmm.
show about bullies and people being bullied, and just it's a hard show to watch. I have made it through about a season and a half, and there are, I think, 5 seasons. But it is not a show that I can sit down at the end of, like, when I've worked all day and I'm like, oh, I just want to like watch something before bed that's going to relax me. It's like, oh, I could watch a Murder She Wrote. Well, we'll definitely catch the bad guy, and Jessica Fletcher never does anything wrong, and is just great all the time. Or I could watch Succession, which is just a bunch of really rich people being horrible to each other, trying to screw each other over, and it's just going to leave a bad taste in my mouth. But so it's one that I've struggled to get through, kind of
Hmm.
like Game of Thrones by the end, where it was just like, dude, like nothing good is happening in the show. This is just really hard to watch, but it's very, very well done. But to my excitement, I have been a fan of Matthew Macfadden all the way back to the early 2000s. And as fate would have it, one of my favorite things in the world is going to garage sales. And as I've been dragging my feet on doing this, That Guy from That Show, because I wanted timing to be right to talk about the amazing arc of his career where he won an Emmy last year. He's considered one of the favorites for best supporting actor Emmy for next year for everything that happened in the last season of Succession. He's finally getting some press in America. He's been well known in Britain forever. But I'm at a garage sale and they are selling DVDs. And as we know, I
You will collect
am
them
I
all.
collect them even, and then I will move and I will sell them all, and then I'll have to rebuy them.
Mm-hmm.
And there were two 8 disc sets of a TV show that aired in Britain called Spooks, which was aired in the U.S. on A&E in the early 2000s, from 2002 to 2007, I think. And Matthew Macfayden it was kind of his first starring role, and in the U.S. it was broadcast as MI5, and
Okay.
it was a spies sort of like how the world is evolving right after, it came out in 2002, so it's right after 9/11. Everyone's really focused on what's happening in the world of spies and how are we finding people. And it was really the first British series that I watched all the way through and learned that in Britain they just will change character. They'll change the characters and they'll change like the leads every couple of seasons. They're not. It's not like Friends where they're like, we're just going to keep paying the same people. They're like, this guy's story's done, and we'll bring in somebody new. And when he left in the third episode of season 3, I remember I was completely blown away because I was an absolutely huge Tom Quinn fan.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it was on BBC. It was called Spooks in the UK, and it was MI5 here. It is weird that his character on Succession is also named Tom, so that's very strange. But I was absolutely in love with his character and its relationship with one of my favorite British actresses of all time, who I did not even realize back then, but I've learned since, was ended up becoming his wife, and they've been married since 2003. When Keeley Haas started on Spooks, she ran into Matthew Macfayden, and she had been married just 6 weeks prior.
Oh wow.
But it was not a great relationship. It was already on the rocks. Uh, that marriage ended after 8 weeks, and then she and Matthew Macfadyen got married in 2004, so a couple of years later, and have been married ever since. You may recognize her from shows like Spooks, MI5, The Bodyguard with the Game of Thrones guy Richard Madden, which was quite good. She was also in a couple other shows just with Matthew Macfadyen herself. She was in a old school uh, in the late '90s show that, well, I'm trying to find the Ashes to Ashes was the name of the other show that they were in together. Uh, I'm never gonna find the one that she was in. There's too many. I have too many links in my screen. But she's been a great British actress and has been the more famous of the couple for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew McFadden got famous after he went to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. He was doing Shakespeare. He was doing classical theater for years, and then finally got cast in Spooks or MI5 in the U.S. And that got him notoriety a little bit, but he didn't really become known to a lot of people until 2007's Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley. He played Mr. Darcy, or sorry, 2005 Pride and Prejudice, because there was a 2005, and there was another one with Colin Firth that came out, I think, a couple years later. But the 2005 Pride and Prejudice with Mr. Darcy, where he played Mr. Darcy, kind of brought him to the world stage. And when I got to play Mr. Bingley in Pride and Prejudice in 2006, yes, 2007, just 2 years later. So that's why I'm getting confused, because I was in Pride and Prejudice in 2007. The movie came out in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
But I absolutely watched the movie several times to try to get an idea of, because I was not somebody who had read Jane Austen when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I even remember being very like teenage boy about it, being like, that's a girl's book, which is just, in hindsight, incredibly dumb. Because I deprived myself of lots of learning. If I had read Pride and Prejudice and read about relationships when I was a teenage boy, I probably would have been a little bit better at them than I was. And it's a teenage boy. So if you're listening to this as your teenage boy, one, how did you find us? Two, go read Pride and Prejudice. It'll be better for you.
Right.
He's excellent in Pride and Prejudice. He also is one of my favorite comedies of all time that has been remade in the U.S. And in the U.S. version, his character is played by Chris Rock because they took a movie called Death at a Funeral, which is
Oh
this classic,
yeah. Because
classic
we talked
British
about that
film
with Peter Dinklage.
with Peter Dinklage, who was the only one of the two that was in both casts.
Yeah.
He was the only guy that crossed over between the two, I think. Maybe also Alan Tudyk, but I know for sure it was he was the main character. But Matthew Macfadyen plays sort of the character that Chris Rock, who saw the movie, said, "I want to remake this and I want to play that character." It's hilarious, but he's this very similar character to his Tom from Succession, where he's sort of this bumbling guy who everything bad is happening around him and he's trying to hold it together, but he's really not any good at it. And he's nervous and he's just not good at being the focal point of attention. He's got this brother who's this famous writer who comes in. It is a lot of fun and definitely worth it. But most of Matthew Macfadyen's experience pre Succession was more period work, Pride and Prejudice. He was on the BBC mystery series Ripper Street, was from 2012 to 2016. He just recently did a movie called Stonehouse, which was another BBC presentation. It was, sorry, miniseries called Stonehouse with his wife, Keely Hawes, who evidently, this is a crazy story that I, as an American, had never heard of, but in the 70s, there was a political, it was the Postmaster General during the Harold Wilson government, and he was a MP for the Wassail North area, who faked his death
What?
because he didn't want to have to face any. He was so embarrassed about stuff that was going to come out in the press that he swam out into the sea, left all his clothes on the shore to fake his own death. Unfortunately, he did not. He did not actually die, so he got caught, and he was arrested for espionage, forgery, theft, fraudulent activities, and was extradited in a very stroke of irony. Someone was extradited from Australia back to the UK because the UK used to send all their prisoners to Australia. So it sounds like an incredibly weird story that just came out in this. It was a 3-episode series that came out just this January of 2023, which I have not been able to find streaming anywhere. But a lot of his work has been that sort of period stuff, whether it was Victorian age. I mean, his first major role was in Wuthering Heights back in 1998. He's always been thought of as sort of this more classical, like almost British Shakespearean, Victorian, period piece actor. And over the last few years, he's made this big transition, especially with Succession, and with last year's Emmy win, and with this year's Emmy win, or with next year's potential Emmy win, I should say. He is considered one of the favorites. I am really excited to see where he goes from here. One of the neat things about him also is he's classically British in that he doesn't really give a lot of interviews. So it is super hard to find any interviews about him. He's very private. He and Keely have a house in Chelsea area of London, and don't throw any big parties. They have regular friends that come over. They're not ones for the tabloids at all. They're not out at the clubs in London and stuff. They've just they're actors and actresses, and they get their job done, and they kind of go home and they like to go gardening and work in the yard and stuff. So it's very, very British. But his next big thing, and this kind of shocked me, but doesn't, because he just with Death at a Funeral and even in Succession, he has moments where he's just very funny.
Mm-hmm.
Is the next movie that he will be in? It was just announced within the last few months. Is he is part of the cast for Deadpool 3?
Oh wow!
Right. What a transition from classic, period pieces like Wuthering Heights and Pride and Prejudice, and even like a 70s era political, dark comedy, even Succession, which is basically all boardrooms. He's going to be in a Marvel movie. I have no idea what his character is going to be. They have not. It's not been really announced. It just says that he's in the film and it's filming. So I'm excited to see what he does next, especially that he's finally getting that Marvel money as well. That he's won a couple of awards. So today's
He's
that
getting
guy
that
from that
Marvel
show.
money.
Gotta get that Marvel money. I mean, we all want that Marvel money.
We do all want that Marvel money. Yes.
I mean, I wanted to be Spider-Man back in 1995 when I heard they were casting it, and I was in high school at the time, and I'm like, I could be Spider-Man.
I
Unfortunately,
could have
they
some
were
Marvel
not
money.
they did not swing by Concordia Academy in Roseville for casting calls, so really missed out there. Could have been me instead of Tobey Maguire.
Tobey Maguire, yeah.
Yeah, which I'm still inexplicably grumpy. It's not like we both went out for it. I just wanted them.
You just wanted it to fall in your lap,
Yeah,
like
I just
show up,
wanted to
like,
just like show up and
hey,
like
hey,
it's
that
like
guy, you guy right there.
yeah, they're right there. You appear to like Spider-Man a lot. Yeah, so inexplicably, I don't like Tobey Maguire. I haven't liked Tobey Maguire for 25 years because he beat me out for a role that I didn't audition for. Which is, if we could put Adam's nonsensical grudges into an entire nutshell, that's it right there.
Can we just
I've
have a whole A side about your grudges?
My
Your
grudges. No,
nonsensical grudges.
we should probably start a spin-off podcast. What gets Adam's apple? It's like the natural progression of what grinds my gears from Family Guy.
Oh my gosh.
But yes, Matthew Macfadyen. And I ran into a good friend of mine at my oldest graduation party this weekend who did mention that I have a horrible trend of saying, "Hey, go watch this show that no one can find." And I realized that I was going to do this because I got 2 episodes of MI5 on DVD, and so I've been watching them this last week. But it's not streaming anywhere. You can't find them pretty much anywhere to buy them on DVD, even on Amazon. So MI5 spooks not super easy to watch. However,
If you
Pride and
can find it.
Prejudice, if you can find it, I highly recommend it. Pride and Prejudice, you can rent on Prime Video, Google Play, YouTube, iTunes, Vudu, Apple TV. Death at a Funeral is available if you have a subscription to something called Hoopla
Okay.
or Canopy with a K. Those are
Okay.
2 things I didn't know existed, but it's included with those subscriptions.
And now you
And
have
it's
subscriptions to them. Okay.
I'm looking into it, yeah.
Mhm,
Especially Hoopla. I'm like, how am I not subscribed to something called Hoopla? It just feels like made for me.
Right.
Prime Video, Google Play, YouTube, iTunes, $3.99. Catch it on there. Ripper Street, which was the series from 2012 to 2016, which takes place 6 months after the start of the Jack the Ripper killings in Victorian England, is available on Philo, another thing I've never heard of,
Okay.
Hoopla, and Fubu TV, which I
Oh,
have heard of.
okay.
Fubo TV,
Fubo.
not Fubu TV.
Fubo.
Fubu
Fubu
TV
is
would
a
be like
clothing line.
there's a clothing line.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's also available on something called Crackle with
Oh, I
ads.
have Crackle. I watch Crackle.
So you can check it out on Crackle. And then you've got, of course, it's available to buy all 5 seasons on Prime Video, YouTube, iTunes, and Apple TV as well. So if you've enjoyed Matthew Macfadyen in Succession and you would like to see more of his work, I highly recommend checking it out. And let's all be excited when he gets that Marvel money this summer and check out Deadpool 3, which just got moved up 9 months
Oh,
for its release date
because this is
because
the one with Hugh Jackman going to be in it.
you got Hugh Jackman, he's got Ryan Reynolds, but it's already written and the filming is already in process. So it's not being impacted in the same way as some of the other Marvel movies. So because of the writer strike that's just been agreed to, and has not started yet, I think will be starting soon. There's been some picketing already, but I don't think they're at full strike level yet.
Right.
But that's gonna throw a wrench in a lot of things. So it'll be very interesting to see what gets delayed, how it impacts some of these major tentpole movies. But the good news is that it made Deadpool 3 into the theater a little bit faster, especially with all these, Disney Plus series with the Star Wars and Marvel that are planned out years in advance, but they're still being written up until they're filmed. And if you got the writers on strike, we may have to wait around but have some interruptions in our regularly scheduled program. So it'll be very interesting. So check that out, and we will see him this fall when Deadpool 3 comes out. And that is the A side.
Awesome. All right. Looking forward to that. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you. So if you want to get more information on all of those things and Matthew Macfadyen's background and also Brooke's B-side this week, all of the sources that they used as well. Go to our website, A-side, B-side podcast.square.site. There you can subscribe to us on all of the various streaming services. You can get to our links. You can buy Brooke a coffee because she has to edit all of this together. And she also has to be able to work for like at 3 a.m. So basically just for like Thursday to Friday, she don't sleep. So you need a lot of caffeine. You can buy merchandise on the website. We've got some cool stuff on there. Still one of my favorite hoodies is one of the first ones that we ever made with our logo on it. And every time anyone sees the logo, in fact, even just this week, when I recommended the podcast to one of my tables at work, because they asked what the podcast was, I don't just tell every table. I mentioned that podcast. They're like, "Oh, tell us about it." I was like, "Okay," but they saw
my
our
arm.
logo. Twist my arm. They saw our logo with the cassette tape and splashes of blood. And like, this is a really cool design. I'm like, "Yes, it is." My partner is excellent at graphic design and also does all the editing. So, if you want that on a T-shirt or a coffee mug, just go to our website, asidebside.square, asidebsidepodcast.square.site.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Brooke.